Hey everyone, welcome to Simplilearn's YouTube channel. In this session, we will learn what exactly is business intelligence and introduction to the most widely used business intelligence tool, that is the Power BI. Once we have a brief understanding of what exactly is Power BI and a better understanding of an introduction to Power BI, we will continue our session with projects on business intelligence using the most important business intelligence tool, that is the Microsoft Power BI. I hope I made myself clear with the agenda. Now, before getting started, if you are an aspiring business analyst who's looking out for online training and certification from the best universities and real-time industry experts, then search now. Also, if you're a tech geek in a continuous hunt for latest technological trends, then consider getting subscribed to our YouTube channel and don't forget to hit that bell icon to never miss an update from Simplilearn. With that having said, over to our training experts.
Before I start off with our top 5 BI tools, I'd like to talk a bit about business intelligence. As you might be aware, there are zillions of companies across the world. These companies generate massive amounts of data on a daily basis. When I say data here, it simply refers to business information, both internal and external, customer feedback, product innovations, and profit loss reports, to name a few. Companies use all of this information to make crucial decisions that can either hamper or boost their business. You might have heard of the term data is the new oil. Well, it definitely is. If organizations analyze all the available data very well, then this oil is definitely valuable. And to help organizations with this, we have business intelligence, which is more often termed as BI. We can define BI as a technology-driven process which works on analyzing unstructured data to derive meaningful information from it. Basically, it is a set of architecture and processes that convert raw data into useful information that helps in achieving profit for a business. So to achieve business intelligence goals, we use a set of tools. These tools are termed as BI tools. They help organizations acquire and analyze data efficiently. Some of the BI tools are seasonal, but some are evergreen. We have a plethora of these tools in the market, which makes it hard for businesses to select one single tool. Here, we have a recommendation list of the top 5 BI tools of 2020. After extensive research and an in-depth evaluation, we have come up with this list. In addition to the top 5, we also have a few other tools which look promising for the year 2020. So let us have a look at the top 5 BI tools. At number 5, we have ThoughtSpot. ThoughtSpot is a US-based company that provides its customers with business intelligence software. ThoughtSpot makes analysis of data easy, and it does so in the matter of a few seconds. As you can see on your screens, this is how the interface looks like. Let's now have a look at the features of ThoughtSpot. ThoughtSpot is a search-driven solution, that is, the users can find insights through an interface known to everyone, that is, search. This makes the tool more accessible. The Spot IQ engine also uses artificial intelligence in the form of algorithms to identify and display insights like trends and causal relationships. Instead of going through a number of different procedures to create a chart, ThoughtSpot's instant chart creation ability lets users automatically view data graphically. With just a few mouse clicks, you can generate a visually appealing story. When a business grows, so will its data requirements. Hence, it is crucial that you have a tool that can be scaled up easily. ThoughtSpot has this feature, and it also performs automatic load balancing across all its servers. ThoughtSpot is also now available for small and medium instance types on AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud. ThoughtSpot has a user-friendly interface. Even users with absolutely no prior knowledge or training can operate ThoughtSpot easily. So those were the features of ThoughtSpot. Let us now have a look at the companies using ThoughtSpot. As you can see on your screens, we have the American multinational retail corporation Walmart. Then we have the Royal Bank of Canada, RBC, followed by 7-Eleven and ExxonMobil. Let us now move on to our next tool. So at number 4, we have SAS BI. The SAS Business Intelligence tool looks into the analysis, data mining, and reporting with the help of powerful visualizations and interactive dashboards. In SAS, data is extracted and categorized, which helps in identifying and analyzing data patterns. As you can see on your screens, this is how the interface looks like. Moving on to the features of SAS BI, first and foremost, it is easy to use. Irrespective of your skill level, you will be able to easily explore, create, and share data. There is no need for the user to rely on the IT team. Better analysis of data is achieved by using automatic code generation and SAS SQL. The next feature of SAS is that it allows you to integrate with open source software such as R. R helps you to connect to many databases and data types. SAS provides the best practices and defines the guiding principles for a secure product development lifecycle. SAS BI ensures that the products meet the business and security needs of the customers. Let us now have a look at the companies using SAS BI. We have companies like Accenture, Genpact, IQVIA, and IBM to name a few. That was all about SAS BI. Let us now move on to our next tool. So at number 3, we have Qlik. The company was founded in Sweden back in the 90s. The company's first product was QlikView. It is a powerful tool which visualizes and analyzes the relationships between data. QlikSense is a self-service data discovery and analysis tool. It provides a modern user interface for data management. Qlik is named a leader in the 2020 Gartner Magic Quadrant for Analytics and BI platforms. As you can see on your screens, this is how the interface looks like. Moving on to the features of Qlik. QlikView can do everything that an OLAP-based solution will do and much faster. You can take advantage of Qlik's powerful AI and machine learning to accelerate discoveries, boost data literacy, and derive insights. QlikSense works without data filters, but while working with QlikView, data filters are required. Qlik allows flexible deployment capabilities for seamless end-user experiences and management capabilities across multi-cloud environments. Data storytelling is an important part of BI. QlikSense provides this feature, but it is not available with QlikView. With the Qlik Data Integration Platform, you can do powerful data integration and perform modern analytics. As you can see on your screens, these are the companies using Qlik. We have Mercedes-Benz, Cognizant, Accenture, and Capgemini. So for all those who joined in now, let me just quickly repeat our list. At number 5, we have ThoughtSpot. Then at number 4, we have SAS BI. And at number 3, we have Qlik. So far, do you all agree with this list? Let us know in the comment section below. Let us now move on to our next tool. At number 2, we have Tableau. Tableau is one of the most popular and fastest growing business intelligence tools used in companies these days. Tableau is a data visualization tool that was founded in 2003. It manages the vast volumes of data and its flow and turns data into actionable information. It allows you to analyze and visualize data faster and efficiently. The Tableau product suite consists of Tableau Desktop, Tableau Public, Tableau Online, Tableau Server, and Tableau Reader. As you can see on your screens, this is how the interface looks like. Moving on to the features of Tableau. One of the most important features of Tableau is that it can connect to 40 different data sources and handle large amounts of data easily. Some of the data sources are local text files, Microsoft Excel, PDFs, JSON, or databases, and servers like MySQL Server, Microsoft SQL Server, etc. Tableau is an easy-to-use drag-and-drop tool which allows its users to create interactive visuals quickly. You can build different charts and graphs, dashboards, and storylines with just a few clicks. In Tableau, you can gain insights that you never thought was possible. You can play with interactive visualizations and explore various data that is available, and you don't need to have any specific knowledge of the insight you're looking for. Knowledge of coding is not required to work on Tableau, as Tableau provides inbuilt table calculations. So some of the companies that use Tableau are the American e-commerce giant Amazon, the Italian luxury sports car manufacturer Ferrari, then we have Walmart, followed by Capgemini and LinkedIn. Before we move on to the number 1 BI tool in our list, let's have a quick look at a few BI tools which didn't make it to our list but which seem to be very promising in the year 2020. So here we have Zoho Analytics, which is a cloud-based self-service BI and data analytics software that is used for data visualization and for creating dashboards. Up next, we have Oracle BI. It is an Oracle Corporation set of BI tools used for reporting and analyzing data built around tables, graphs, dashboards, etc. Then we have Pentaho, which is a BI software used for creating relational and analytical reporting. With the help of Pentaho, we can transform complex data into meaningful reports and draw valuable insights out of them. And finally, on the top of the hierarchy, we have Power BI. Power BI is a business intelligence tool that provides users with features to analyze, visualize, aggregate, and share insights from data to make business decisions. It is provided by Microsoft. Power BI has several components such as Power Query, Power Pivot, Power View, Power Map, Power BI Desktop, and Power Q&A. Each of these components has its own features and functionalities. As you can see on your screens, this is how the interface looks like. Moving on to the features of Power BI. Firstly, it provides easy drag and drop functionality, which makes data visually appealing. It allows you to copy all formatting across similar visualizations. Power BI transforms your enterprise data into rich visuals and accurate reports for enhanced decision making. It can also be used with Azure. Using Power BI with Azure allows you to analyze and share large volumes of data. It integrates seamlessly with advanced cloud services like Azure and Cortana to provide results for the verbal data queries. With Power BI, you can fetch data from factory sensors and social media sources to get access to real-time analytics. It provides a unified user experience with customized dashboard and reports that meet your exact needs. Power BI ensures secure report publishing as it sets up automatic data refresh and rapidly publishes reports, allowing all the users to avail the latest information. The companies that use Power BI on a daily basis are Nestle, Capgemini, Accenture, and Entity Data.
Business intelligence is a set of processes and techniques to analyze raw data and extract information that helps drive business decisions. It helps you keep track of business data and draw valuable insights. There are several tools that play a key role in business intelligence. Some of the popular tools are Power BI, Tableau, and ClickView. Hi guys, welcome to this tutorial on what is Power BI. In this video, you will learn why Power BI is needed, what is Power BI, the various features of Power BI, and the different components of Power BI. Later, you will look at the architecture of Power BI, what Power BI service is, and how to create a Power BI dashboard. Finally, you will understand a case study on Meyer and do a demo using Power BI. Now let's understand why Power BI is needed. First, Power BI has the ability to access vast volumes of data from multiple sources. It allows you to view, analyze, and visualize huge quantities of data that cannot be opened in Excel. Some of the important data sources available in Power BI are Excel, CSV, XML, JSON, PDF, etc. Second, Power BI provides an easy-to-use drag and drop tool with features and functionalities that allow you to copy all formatting across similar visualizations. Power BI has exceptional integration with Excel. It helps you gather, analyze, publish, and share Excel business data. Power BI helps to accelerate big data preparation with Azure. Using Power BI with Azure allows you to analyze and share vast volumes of data. Azure Data Lake can reduce the time it takes to get insights and increase collaboration between business analysts, data engineers, and data scientists. Power BI allows you to get insights from data and turn insights into actions to take data-driven business decisions. Finally, Power BI allows you to perform real-time stream analytics. It fetches data from multiple sensors and social media sources to get access to real-time analytics, so you are always ready to make business decisions. Now let's see what Power BI is. Power BI is a business analytics service provided by Microsoft that lets you visualize your data and share insights. It converts data from different sources to build interactive dashboards and BI reports. As you can see, we have an Excel data about sales. Using this data, Power BI helps you build different charts and graphs to visualize the data. Now that we have understood what Power BI is, let us look at the important features of Power BI. First is Power BI Desktop. Power BI Desktop is a free software that you can download, and it allows you to build reports by accessing data easily. For using Power BI Desktop, you do not need advanced report designing or query skills to build a report. Second, as already discussed, Power BI supports stream analytics, from factory sensors to social media sources, Power BI assists in real-time analytics to make timely decisions. Third, support for multiple data sources is one of the major features of Power BI. You can access various sources of data such as Excel, CSV, SQL Server, web files, etc. to create interactive visualizations. And finally, custom visualization. Custom visualization is another vital feature of Power BI. While dealing with complex data, Power BI's default standard might not be enough in some cases. In that case, you can access the custom library of visualization that meets your needs. Let us jump into discussing the various components of Power BI. As you can see, there are 6 major components of Power BI. Now let's discuss them one by one. First is Power Query. Power Query is the data transformation and mashup engine. It enables you to discover, connect, combine and refine data sources to meet your analysis need. It can be downloaded as an add-in for Excel or can be used as part of Power BI Desktop. Second, we have Power Pivot. Power Pivot is a data modeling technology that lets you create data models. It also allows you to establish relationships and create calculations. It uses data analysis expression language or DAX to model simple and complex data. Third, we have Power View. Power View is a technology that is available in Excel, SharePoint, SQL Server and Power BI. It lets you create interactive charts, graphs, maps and other visuals that brings your data to life. Next, we have Power Map. Microsoft's Power Map for Excel and Power BI is a 3D data visualization tool that lets you map your data and plot more than 1 million rows of data visually on Bing Maps in 3D format from an Excel table or data model in Excel. Then we have Power BI Desktop. Power BI Desktop is a development tool for Power Query, Power Pivot and Power View. With Power BI Desktop, you have everything under the same solution and it is easier to develop BI and data analysis experience. Finally, we have Power Q&A. The Q&A feature in Power BI lets you explore your data in your own words. It is the fastest way to get an answer from your data using natural language. An example could be, what was the total sales last year? Once you have built your data model and deployed that into Power BI website, then you can ask questions and get answers easily. Now, let's see what Power BI Service is. Power BI Service is the software as a service part of Power BI. It is also referred as Power BI Online. To access Power BI Service, you need to log into app.powerbi.com. Now let me show you that. I'll go to Google, I'll open a new tab and search for app.powerbi.com. It's loading. But this is how the homepage of Power BI Service looks like. I've created some dashboards on it. First, you need to log into app.powerbi service. You can see I'm logged in. Now under my workspace, if I go to dashboard, here I've created a finance dashboard. You can see the different charts and graphs I've prepared and pinned it to the dashboard. So Power BI Service allows you to connect to your data, create reports and dashboards, and you can also ask questions to your data. Now as you can see in this dashboard, we have created some charts and graphs. So this is a tree map. There's a pie chart, there's a bar graph. Below you can see there are line charts and donut charts. It tells you the total sales that were made, the total number of units sold, the sales by product, sales by country, sales by segment, and lots more. One of the key features of Power BI is creating dashboards from multiple reports and datasets. Power BI Dashboard is a single-page visualization to tell a story. The visualizations on a dashboard are generated from multiple reports and each report is based on one dataset. A single-page dashboard is known as a canvas. The visualizations you see on the dashboard are called tiles. These tiles are pinned to the dashboard by report designers. Now let me go back to my dashboard. So this is called a canvas and each of these are called tiles. So on the top you can see we have 3 tiles. Now let's understand how to create and publish reports in Power BI dashboards. Power BI allows you to create different reports on Power BI Desktop. These reports can be published on the Power BI dashboard using Power BI Service. Here you can see there is a Power BI report created on Power BI Desktop. If you click on Publish, it will take you to the Power BI Service where you can build a dashboard. Here is the button for Power BI Publish. Once you click on Power BI Publish, it will take you to the dashboard. So this is a single page Power BI dashboard on Power BI Service. Now let's understand the Power BI architecture. Power BI architecture is a service built on top of Azure. There are multiple data sources that Power BI can connect to. Power BI Desktop allows you to create reports and data visualizations on the dataset. Power BI Gateway is connected to on-premise data sources to get continuous data for reporting and analytics. Power BI services are basically the cloud services that are used to publish Power BI reports and data visualizations. Using Power BI mobile apps, you can stay connected to their data from anywhere. Power BI apps are available for Windows, iOS, and Android platforms. Now, let's look at a case study on how Meijer, which is one of United States' largest supermarket chains, used Power BI to solve its business problems. Initially, Meijer had become dependent on its IT organization to extract insights from its data. It was time-consuming and inefficient as you had to wait for IT to build every report. Meijer was unable to perform ad hoc and real-time analysis easily. So what Meijer did was, it connected Power BI to an on-premises SQL Server Analysis Services cube. This allowed them to refresh 20 billion rows of data in near real time. With Power BI, teams can now pull in the data faster and perform real-time analysis to derive insights from data. A bakery department inside Meijer used Power BI to compare its sales with regional performance. They analyzed where Meijer was behind the regional trends, focused on the problem, and created a solution. With Power BI, they can now drill down into hourly sales and send out a sales flash to 800 Meijer business leaders. So Power BI enabled them to standardize data sources and empower store directors and team leaders to develop and track their data to ensure what they can improve. Now, let's do some practical hands-on demo with Power BI. So this is how the Power BI desktop interface looks like. On the left, you have the report view, the data view, and the model view. The report view is where you visualize your data with different charts and graphs to build reports. The data view allows you to view the whole data, while the model view is where you check if there are any relationship between the tables. On the right, you can see the different visualizations that you can build. We'll quickly run through all of these in our demo. So here you can see there's a finance sample data that will help you draw insights about the sale of products in different countries. We will create a report to visualize different charts and graphs and analyze those sales. So let me go to my Power BI desktop. First, we'll import our data. So let me go to our Get Data tab and choose Excel as my data source. I click on Excel. So here is our finance sample data. We'll select sheet 1. You can see the data here. Click on it and then select load. This might take some time to load the data. Now if I go to my data tab, you can see the entire data set. It has fields such as segment, country in which the sales was made, the name of the product, the units sold, and the sales price, and many more. Let's start building our report now. I'll go to my report view. So first let me create a text box. Let me resize it. Let me name it as Finance Dashboard. We'll increase the size of the text. We'll use font Consolas, center it. We'll also add a background to this. We use blue color, change it to white, and increase the size. Now, let me first show you how you can create a matrix. I'll go to Visualizations and click on Matrix. Let me resize it. From the Datasheet tab, I'll select Sales and drag onto Values. So you can see the total number of sales that were made. Now, let me do some formatting. So I'll go to the Format tab, click on Column Headers. Let's add a background color and let me increase the text size to 20. Similarly, under Values, we'll increase the size of the text to 20 as well. We can also click on Border and choose the color of the border. May take as, let it be black. So this is a simple matrix that we created which shows the total number of sales that were made. Similarly, let me choose matrix once again. Now we'll drag on the units sold onto values. We'll continue with the same drill. Under column headers, we'll add a background. This time, let's choose some other color, and under values, let's increase the size of the text to 20. Even for the column headers, let's increase the size of the text to 20. Again, we'll switch on border. We'll resize a bit. So here we have two matrices created for our report. The first matrix shows us the total sales that were made. The second matrix shows you the total units that were sold. Now let's move ahead and create a simple bar chart. So under visualization, I click on clustered column chart. Under this, we'll drag the date column onto axis and the sales onto value. Let me expand it. So it shows you the sales by year. This is the sales that were made in 2013 and this shows you the sales that were made in 2014. Now there's a drill down option which gives you more granularity. This depicts the sales by quarter. If I drill down further, you can see this shows you the sales by month. Also, you have some options like sort by and sort by sales. So you can see October month made the highest number of sales. Moving ahead, let me now create a pie chart where we will see the sales by different segments. Under visualization, I'll click on pie chart. Let me first resize it. Here, I'll drag the segment column onto the legend and the sales column onto the values. As you can see, we have the sales made by different segments. Government segment made the highest number of sales with 44.22%. Now let me add a border to both the visualization. I'll click on the pie chart and go to the Format tab. I'll switch on the border. Similarly, for the clustered column chart, I'll go to the Format tab and click on Border. Now let me resize a bit. Alright. Next, we'll create a very simple table that will depict the total sales made by each product. So under Visualizations, I click on Table. Let me bring this below. So from the data sheet, I'll first drag product onto values. You can see the different products and then sales just below it. So this depicts the total sales that were made by each product. And finally, it displays the total value of the sales that were made. This is same as the one shown here. Now let's do some formatting. Under Format tab, I'll go to Values and increase the text size to 15. Let me expand it. Also, under Column Headers, I'll increase the text size to 15. Then, let me go and add a border. Now let me create a map that will show you the sales that were made by each country. So first, let me create a new page and under Visualization, I'll click on Map. Now, I'll drag the country column onto Location. So you can see we have our map ready and we'll drag sales onto size. You can see the different countries and the sales that they made. If I move the map, you can see the sales made in the Europe region. Let me resize it. I'll add a border to this. Now let me go ahead and create a donut chart that will show you the profit by each segment. Under Visualizations, I'll click on Donut Chart. I'll move this to the top. Now, from the data sheet, I'll add profit onto the values and segment onto the legend. If I expand this, you can see government segment made the highest amount of profit with 65.04%. Let me resize this and we'll add a border. Okay, in the final visualization, I'll show you how to create a tree map. This tree map will tell you the total amount of sales made by each product. So under Visualizations, I'll click on the tree map. Let me expand it. I'll drag sales onto values and product onto group. So here you can see our tree map and the sales made by each product. You can see now we have our report ready. We have created two separate canvases to visualize our data. Now, if you want to change the color of these bars, you can simply go to the Format tab and under Data Colors, you can choose whichever color you want. In Power BI Desktop, you have an option to switch your theme. This will make your dashboard or the report look more attractive. So now we are under the default mode. Let's try out different themes. That's Frontier, it's Temperature, Solar, which is a little yellowish. The one which I like is Tidal. I hope this was helpful in making you understand the basics of Power BI and how it works. You learned the various features and the components of Power BI and looked at the architecture of Power BI.
Let's learn about Power BI through a quick demo by uploading some datasets and playing with those datasets. Let's look at a sample dataset and let's upload it. And as I explained, while uploading, let's also transform the data so that we can have selective fields or selected data loaded here instead of loading the complete data set. And then let's see how we can visualize this or how we can use the information in this data set. Now what we can do here is we can click on Get Data and then we can choose one of the data formats which we would be looking for. So for example, I can go for Excel and basically click on this. Now here are some of my data sets. So let's look into the folder here, and these data sets are also available on my GitHub link, which I'll share with you later. So here we have something called a superstore. Let's click on this, and here I already have a data set which is global superstore, or I also have selective data. So let's select this one, click on open. Now that's basically connecting to my data source, and that will show me what does that Excel sheet have. So it has different tabs, which is orders, people, and returns. So let's select orders, and that basically gives me a preview of the data which I have. And if you scroll all the way to right, it shows me city, state, and then country. And if you see here, we do see information of all the countries. Now this can be huge amount of data which we would want to look into. But say for example, my use case is that I'm interested in looking for the data for United States and as a country and all its states. So we will do that when we do a transform. Now we can also select the returns tab, and that shows me these three fields. However, the first row should have been the heading of this particular data set, and we will transform that. Now I can go ahead and click on load, but that will load all the data. So instead of that, let's go for transforming. So let's click on transform data. Now once you do that, it brings you your toolkit, that brings you your Power Query Editor, which allows you to transform your data. So for example, we have data from returns tab or returns data source, as you see here. So we see column 1, column 2, and column 3, and that also shows the type of the data here. It also gives me a quick small option here. Let's select this, and then I can say use first row as header. Now there are various other options which you can do. You can add a custom column, you can add column with examples, you can keep the top rows, you can remove the top rows, you can keep errors, keep duplicates. So there are different ways, and you can also do a merge query or append query. So as of now, let's just say use first row as headers, and that basically shows that now my first row has become the header. You also see in the applied steps, it basically tells me if I have changed the type of the data. If I have made any other changes, those steps will get added here. So it basically shows me the name as it returns. It shows me applied steps where I've changed the type, and now I basically have this information. Now this is something where you can change the type, or you can basically set it to a particular format. However, we are not doing anything of that sort right now, so we can do that for any of these columns. So this looks good. When it comes to orders, let's click on this. And as I said, I would be interested in selecting for country as United States only. And let me just work on that data. However, we can work on all the data. So let me scroll all the way to right. And here I have the country. Now there are these filters which we can use. So basically I can click on this, and that shows me all the countries are selected. Now there is also something called as text filters, which we will see how we can use to select particular data. I basically have other ways of filtering the data. So for example, now I will just uncheck this select all, and what I would be interested is in United States. So let's type it here. That shows me as an option here. Select this, and then basically say OK. So that should basically now filter out, and it shows me the data is United States only, and then you have different states, and rest of the data remains. So if you look at the applied steps, it tells me that there are filtered rows. Now we have done the basic transformation for this data set on these two data sources, that is orders and returns. So here you have an option which says close and apply. So close the query editor window and apply any pending changes. You can click on this and it says apply. So for example, I can just say apply for now, and that should basically apply the changes which I have performed using my query editor. That is, I have transformed the data so that I can have selective data uploaded in my Power BI. Now it's doing that. It shows me it is working on both of these data sources, that is orders and returns. So that's done. And now basically, if there are any other pending changes, we can just do a close and apply. So that basically has closed. And now you would see the data appearing here. So I have uploaded the data as per my preferences. Now, if you click on the data tab here, so it basically shows you your data fields. It might take some time to populate, but if you see in the country field now, even if I click on the filter, it just shows me United States. Now that's what we wanted. So we have already uploaded this data in orders. You can always expand the option here, which shows me all the fields which are there in this. Might be this is an aggregation, might be that's an order date. So this is again some kind of aggregation. We can change the data types. So we are looking at all the fields in my orders table, or basically coming from the orders data source. I also have returns, which shows me 3 fields, and that shows me the data which is returned, order ID and region. So the column names are applied correctly as we want, and that basically looks fine. Now we can also look at your model. So when you click on model, it shows me these two. However, there is no, as of now, relationship established between them. So it says under properties, select one or more model objects to set their properties. So right now, these are not related. There is no relationship established between them. So if I would want some data which relates to orders and returns, then that would fail because it would say there is no relationship. Now I can go to the first option which says report, and we have not created any report here. Although we can create a simple report, we can look at the data. So we have our orders field. Now we can basically pull out some information from here. We can choose what kind of report we may want to create. So for example, let's go for the table option from visualizations. You have various options here which we can use. This is where you can do a formatting. This is where you can select the fields. This is where you can search and filter out the data. You can also add data fields here. So first let's click on table, and that basically gives me a table. Now this table as of now does not have anything. So you can use the filter and slices option here, which will affect the visualization. Or basically what you can do is, now since we have orders here, so this is my orders and I would like to work on this. So let's say, for example, country is, I can select country as a field, and if you say, it shows me country is all as of now, and it says the value is United States. What I can also do is, I'm interested in the states, so I have state. Now I can basically drag and drop it here, and then the state gets added here. So I can basically say select all, and that should basically take care of my state field being added here. So state is all, country is all. Now we can basically look at something else. So might be, let's choose sales, and I can just drag and drop sales here. So that basically says if you would want to have any kind of advanced filtering, which says filter type, so go for advanced filtering is less than or equal, or you can also go for advanced filters. So that's fine as of now. So we have added some fields here, and that's basically my data here. So let's go for filters here, which basically should select all my fields. Now, if you see, the visualization shows my country, sales, and state, which we had either by selecting the fields and dropping them here, or you can in this section where it says fields. So you can, for example, let me show it again. So I can just delete this. I can click on the table option. I can just drag it here. I can basically make it bigger, and I need to add data to this one. So it says add data fields here. So now let's say country is what we are interested in. We are also interested in states. So let's drop that here, and let's say sales. So this is also what I'm interested. So I'm looking at one specific country. I'm looking at sales per state. And when we look at sales, it basically tells me that this is a summation. So you will basically get the total sales which have happened. Now we are looking at this data here. We can always go to formatting. We can click on grid. We can basically increase the font here. We can change the grid color. So for example, let's make it, for example, blue. So I can just select this, and it should basically allow me to have the grid color as blue. Now I can go in for the grid thickness. I can go for row padding, outline color. So we can basically make it a little bit more readable. And then we can basically increase the font size here to look at the information. And you have other options here. So what would you want to do with column headers? So I can basically have the font color, background color is fine. Do you want to have an outline? Do you want to have a change in font? What is the text size? Might be we can make the heading a little bigger. And then basically you also have the field formatting. So all those could be done. You could go for background, and all these things can be done in formatting. So now we already have our data here, and this basically looks good. And this is basically one of my visuals which I have here. And this has given me some information for sales, and basically I can scroll this. I can also make it bigger. So I could select a particular field if I'm more interested in looking at the information for a particular state. Now I can add more fields to this. So this is my one of the reports which I have created. Now what I can do with this report is I can basically have more data fields. I can add filters to this. I can basically look into all the data here by just clicking somewhere in the grid, but somewhere outside. If you select a particular row, then that data shows up. Here you have an option of focus mode, which you can go for. You can look at the other options which says export data. Now, if this is the data which you are interested in, you can export it. You can always do show as a table if you are interested in. You can do a sort by country, sales, or state. So for example, let's do a sorting by state. And that basically gives me the data which has been sorted by state information. Now we could obviously have the information here, so I can then change the order so it shows me alphabetically. This is the information which I have. So I've created a simple visualization using the data which I have. And what I can do is I can click on save. So that basically asks me to save this as a Power BI file which has an extension of PBIX, and I can basically call it my report. So let's say first report, and here I can say country, or I can say state wise sales in USA. Let's say USA, and that basically is my first report. Now once you have saved this report, you can always look on your machine. For example, if I go in here and if I go into this folder, might be I should look on desktop, and this is where I should have saved it. So it shows me first report state-wise. That will open up in Power BI. And we have created a simple report which we have basically used by taking our data. Now I can also do is I can publish this if I would want to share this information. So publish this report online in Power BI service. You can basically select your report, what we have here, and I clicked on publish. So it says what's the destination. So you can have different workspaces. I will choose the default, that's my workspace. I can click on select. Now it says publishing first report statewide sales in USA to Power BI. You can create a portrait view of your report and you can do all that stuff. So let it publish, and then we can basically look into our Power BI server. That's our service where the information is already shared or published, I would say, which can then be shared with different sources. So we can come here and basically I can look into the Power BI, and this is where I will be able to look into my workspaces. And let's look in my workspace. So it says this is the place where I had initially downloaded Power BI dataset. It says your dataset is ready. Let Power BI help you explore your data, right? So you can always do this. You can click on view dataset, which basically allows you to bring out your workspace and first report state wise sales. Now that's the report which we have published. So let's first check in our desktop if that's done. So it says success, open first report in Power BI. Now I can click on this one straight away, and that takes me to my service. Now once it takes me to the service, it shows me the report which we created, which we published, and it basically has the option where I can save it as a different copy or give a different name. I can embed this in a website or a portal. I can publish to web, embed this report for public access by anyone on the internet. We can do that. We can export it to PowerPoint. So we can do all these options. You also have an option of view where you can change the view. You can basically also edit report here. So you can do that if you are interested in something specific. You can do a sharing to teams. So if you have your teams or groups set up, you can share it with them. You have an option of common panes. You can basically view usage metrics report. Now that can be sometimes helpful. You can basically go ahead and go and subscribe a particular report. So if there are new changes made, you will be the one who will be informed. You can click on share. Now if I click on share here from my service, it says only users with Power BI Pro will have access to this report. Recipients will have the same access as you unless row level security on the data set further restricts them. So I can grant access, and this is where I will have to give the email IDs of the people with a message that I would want to have them look at this report, right? You can also allow recipients to build new content using the underlying data sets, and you can send an email notification to the users. As of now, I don't have any other groups, so I'll not be sharing it, but I have created a simple report. Now let's also look at edit report. Let's just to see what it helps us. And when you click on edit report, it basically brings up this one which says your file, view. It gives you the filters. It basically allows you to add data fields to this. So it is basically giving access to these data sets which were in my desktop. It is basically allowing you to give or create different visualizations. Now here we have the data which we are looking at, and if say for example somebody is interested in filtering the data, so you could do that. So you could click on filter here, and that basically applies. This is the filter we have. Now country is fine, sales might be. I can click on sales and I would say okay, let's look at sales which is more than a particular amount. So we can say is greater than, and might be I can give a number here. So I can say 30,000, and basically I can say apply filter. So right now I'm applying filter, and I would look at the values, which also shows me the total value is changed. So you have not only created a report, you have published it, and now from the service you can edit it. So I'm looking at particular data here, And then basically I can click on file and I can save it, or I can say save a copy of the report. And let's say I will call it the same name. So I'll say first report underscore state wise sales, and I will say modified. So let's do a save, and the report has been saved. So now you're looking at the data here. So that is basically giving you information. So when I click on my workspace here, I can click on reports, and that does show me my previous report. It shows me the modified report. It gives me an option of looking at the usage metrics report. So say for example, you want to click on this one, and it will basically give you the usage metrics. So let's click on this one, and that basically shows me the report usage metrics, which is generated. So views per day, unique viewers per day. You would want to look at the different platforms, who was using it, views by user, and this can be sometimes useful if we would want to look into this one. Now I can go back to my workspace, I can click on reports, and that basically took me to usage metrics. I could be sharing it, I can analyze in Excel, I can look for quick insights based on this data what we have. You can basically look at the related information. You can also look at the settings of this one. And basically this is how you have your data report here. Now that also shows me the data sets option. So which basically gives me the data sets which can be used to create further reports. And we have our data here. So for example, if I click on create report, it basically gives me these data sets, and we can continue working on this. So this is how I have a simple report created without basically working on two different data sources, but I have selected some data here, and then I can basically add details to this. So for example, now if we look at orders, and say for example, this is the data I have, and say you would want to add some fields. So let's go to returns, and say for example, I would be interested in looking at the products. So might be what I should do is I should replace the report here. Instead of country, it would be interesting to look at the product which we have, or basically customer ID. So we can look at customer ID, we can look at the order ID, which would be interesting to see if there is a particular order, what was the sales which was generated, and if there were any returns which were happening on that. So for example, here when I have these, let me cut out country as a field, and I will basically take order ID and place it here. So now if you see, my data has been easily modified. So I have my order ID, I have sales, and I have state-wise information. So you have basically all the information, but this is now order ID, state, and so on. Now, what if I would want to also see based on the order ID, if I say I would want the returned field. So for example, I would want to take this one, and let's drag and drop it here. Now that says cannot display the visual. Now why is that? So if you click on see details, that says cannot determine relationships between the fields. So it cannot display the data because Power BI cannot determine the relationship between two or more fields. And how do we fix that? So for example, if I click on fix this, now it says there is a missing relationship between these fields. Use auto detect to search for relationships or create them manually. Now I can click on auto detect, which will try to search for fields which exist in both the data sets, or basically I can create relationships. So let's click on create relationships, and that basically takes me to this page which says there are no relationships defined from table to table and so on. So I can click on new, Now here it says select the tables and the columns that are related. Now I can say orders. Now those are my fields where you have order IDs, and it automatically shows that returns also has an order ID field, although all the values might not be same. But this is how you can create a relationship. And it says the cardinality says many to one, so you can have basically many to one relationship. You are saying cross filter direction is single, so make this relationship active, and it has already helped us basically identifying the field. So I can say okay. So it says now these two tables should be related or should be connected based on order ID. So here we have this, and let's basically say close. Now once that is done, if you see, I have order ID, I have returned, I have sales column, and I have state. And if you see in returned, I do have a value of yes, which shows this particular order ID had generated some sales, and it was for state Alabama, and it was returned, and the value is yes. So if you scroll down, you basically see all the values. Now we can add different filters where we can say I would want only yes and no. Now this is again an interesting report. So let's go in also into the formatting, and what we can do is we can look at, say, the grid option. If we would want to basically say vertical grid, and let's say on, and it says vertical grid color. So let's select this. Might be I can try doing a black here. It puts it in the right nice table format, and that basically looks good. So you have sales, returned, and so on. And this is basically the order which I'm seeing here. So for example, if I would want to change the order, and if I'm saying, okay, I would like to look at sales and returned and so on. So we can be doing that. We can come here and say, for example, I have sales and returned. Let's try moving the sales column over here. Might be state is an information which we would want in the beginning. So let me also move the states all the way here. So it gives me state, it gives me the order ID, sales, and if there was a return which was happening on that particular product. So easily I've modified my report. Now what I can do is I can just save it, and I can do the same thing. So I can publish it, I can basically continue using it, or I can work on a new report. So let's continue learning, and now here we will also see how you can load some data and perform some transformations and basically get multiple results or multiple tables or multiple data sets which can be then further used for reporting. So Power BI does give you a lot of options. Now here you have an option, as we saw earlier, that is get data, or what you can do is you have an option where you can create new data also, which says enter data. Now this is something which can be easily used if you have relatively less number of fields. So you can basically add more columns here, and you can basically add values. So for example, if I would just call it something like scientist ID, okay, and then I can say scientist name, and then basically I can say domain, and then I can say, for example, let's say year of joining, and I can keep adding the number of columns here. I can delete the columns, right? And I can give this, and I can say country. So that's it. And now we have created these five columns, which we have given some names, and we can start entering some values. So I can basically say, let this scientist ID be 2234, I can give some name. So let's give Peter, let's say domain, and I can say biotechnology. I can give year of joining 2011, and I can say Germany as the country. And I really don't want this particular column, so I can go ahead and delete this. Now I can come here and then I can give something else. So I can say this is scientist ID. I can give John. Let's say the scientist is mainly working in physics. And then I can say 2018, and let's say France, and go back here, and let's say 4567, and let's say Marie, and let's say she does her research in molecules, and let's call it 2001, and let's say Italy. Okay, and you can continue adding data in this way. Now you can say if the data is already here, so I can say, for example, no, I do not want this particular row. I do not want this particular row. So you can basically keep adding values here. Now you can say edit. So here we have to give some name. So let's say scientists. Okay. And then if you choose edit, it basically brings up your Power BI editor, which allows you to work on these fields. If you would want to make some changes, now we can make some changes here. We can see what are the number of rows. We can basically perform any kind of transactions here. So this one basically tells me what is the data type. So here we see scientist ID, and this clearly tells me this is an integer. However, we will not want to do any kind of computations here. So we can as well change this. So I can just do a right click and I can work on this particular column. What I can also do is I can just click on this, and this tells me that you would want to change it to date time, or you want to change it to some number. So I can just say string because we are not going to perform any computation here. So on the ID column, so let's say text, and I'm changing it. So it says replace current, add a new step. So selected column has an existing type conversion. Would you like to replace the existing conversion or preserve the existing? So I will say replace current. And now the data type has been changed. It is of a string. And if you see, this step has got added here. So it says that the change type is the kind of transformation we did here. So that's fine. Now what we can also do is we have the scientist name, but we don't like the column name here. So it would be good to change this. So there is something called as remove or remove columns and so on. So when you do a right click, it gives you a lot of options in applying filters or doing some transformation. If I just click on this one, so what I can do is I can look at the date time, and let's go here. So we have an option which says, do you want to change the type? Now we could have done that here, or like I said, you could choose the time and do it. You can just say transform, and how do you want to change it? So do you want to change it to uppercase? Well, you can do that and changes all the values of this one. What I can do is I can again do a right click, and I can choose basically if you would want to clean up the data, or if you would want to convert to lowercase, you want to capitalize each word. So let's choose that. And if you see here, the steps are getting added. Now to undo any particular step, if I just cancel this, then I'm back to this. If I cancel this, I'm back to my original form. So you can anytime undo your changes, and you can basically work on this. So we are working on this particular column. Now there are various other options that you can look at. So for example, this is some of my data, but it does not have much information. It would be good to load some bigger data set and then use these transformations, or basically working on changing the data types, as I mentioned, or if you would want to do a filtering and remove certain fields and only select particular fields, if that's what you're interested, doing a right click where I want to create a copy of this, and then basically I can use that particular copy. Now what I can also do is I can add column from examples, I can duplicate column, and then I can make some changes to that. So this is my duplicate column, and say for example you would want this one to be changed, so we can say remove duplicates. We can basically, if you're doing some kind of change, you want to change the format here, you can do that. You can use for other things like filling up and all that. Now I can just call it rename, and let's say alias scientist name, right? And I can continue adding columns, or I can do some transformations. And once you have done with these transactions, now this one, if you see, it shows as integer, but is it an integer? No, this is an date format. So I can go for modeling and change the formats. What I can also do is I can select this, and it says it's not a decimal, it's not a fixed decimal, it is date time, it is date, it is date time and time zone, right? And you can select any one of these. So for example, let's make it date, which makes it more meaningful. But then what happens is when you do this, it is going for the default dates or the older dates, so I don't like that. So what we will have to do is we will have to basically transform this, and here we have transform, you have change type, so you have date and time, you have date, you have time. So let's choose date and time, and if you see here, it gives me some default timing based on these values, which we do not like. So again, filter it out. But what we can do is we can just make sure that this is changed, or you want to make it a string, because we are not going to do any computation here. So I can keep it as date, but then if I have more fields like month and days and so on, then you can do that. So here it also has the option. So when you have selected this, you have an option called transform, and transform also has various options which allow you to work on these. Do you want to do some scientific calculations? Do you want to work on the date field? So as of now it is just integer, so we can use one of these. We can do a group by, but obviously we don't have much data here. So as of now, let us retain this. I can just change this to text, and that's okay, because we are going to look at this later. We can add more data and work on it. So as of now, once we have done all these changes, you can go back to say home, and here you have close and apply, and I can basically say close and apply. So the changes will be applied, and then my new table, which we just created by entering some random data, performing some basic transformations, will be available. So if you look into this one, so that's where my data is. It shows me the columns, but there is no aggregated column as such here. You don't see any summation mark. You just see the field names or the column names. You see the values. Now obviously if you go into modeling, there is no existence of a different table which you can join these tables, or you can perform some transactions, come back to the data set. So this looks good, and we have it here. Now obviously we have not created any visualization based on this, which we can, and we can continue working on it. So here, this is my data set, which is a small table where we have created some data, and we can use it anytime. Now, let's work on a bigger data set and see what kind of transformations we can do. We can then also see on modeling, or basically using some smarter ways of working with the data. So what we would want to do is we would want to load some data here. So let's go into home, let's go to get data, let's use our old store data, and I'm going to take the global superstore, which is huge data set with all the countries and the products and the sales which have happened. and we can take this data, but before loading it, as I suggested earlier, we should basically transform the data. We should basically transform the data so that you don't end up loading everything and you don't work on all the data. I mean, unless you really want to. So here I will, this Excel sheet which I'm talking about has two different tabs. We have used it before. So let's use orders, let's use returns, and that basically shows me the data what we have. So I can do a load, but that's not what we would want to do. So you can do a load and you can get all the data, but let's go to transform, make some basic transformations before we load the data. So our Power BI editor allows us to work on this. Now here we have, it says this preview may be up to 9 days old. So I can do a refresh. I can select this and I say, first thing is use first row as header because that's what I want. So it is basically setting the first row as header, which looks good. And we have some order IDs. We have the returned if the product was returned. So let's look at the filter here. So it just has yes values which we are looking at. So it says list may be incomplete. Let's say load more, and let's see what are the filters here. So either there might be a product which is returned or it might be blank field, so that is chosen, so that's fine. We have order ID, we have region, which is basically showing me different regions here. Let's look at orders, and orders is again having your row ID, order date, ship mode. So you have quite large amount of data here for your different countries. Now in earlier example I chose United States and then I was only focusing on the states and city in United States. So we can do that. Now I can basically work on refresh. So whatever preview was stored in the memory, we are just refreshing it. Now here we have this row ID, and if you see, the row ID is an integer. Obviously we will not be performing any kind of computation here. So here you don't have any row ID, but here we have row ID. So let's make it from integer, let's make it string, and I'll say replace current. So that looks fine. It's a row ID which we will use to search, but we are not going to perform any computations unless you want to find on an average on row ID or anything else. Now you have order IDs. So what we can do is we can filter some values. We can rename the field as we desired, right? So for example, let's go in here, and what we can do is let's go into customer ID, ship, okay, and here you have say state, you have region, okay. Now at any point of time, if I would want to filter out the values, the easier option is that you can select on this one, and here you can do some text filtering, okay, or you can basically select the values from here. So for example, if I say let's get rid of select all, what we will be interested in, say United States and UK, that's the data we want, and then I can basically say okay. So it is basically going to filter out the data which is for United States and UK as of now. Now what we can also do is, how about doing some more filtering before we basically work on this. So let's go in here, and we are looking at United States and UK related data, and let's look at, it is sometimes good that you can basically work on the data here. So for example, I go into orders. Now what I would want to do is I would want to look at the fields, okay, and we have not yet loaded the data. So if you look in the background, I just have my scientists because we have not applied these changes, we have not loaded, we are still in the transformation stage, right? Now what we can do is let's go for, so we can do segment and all these kind of fields. can be used for grouping the data. So we will see that whenever you have a data set, you would already know there are certain fields which have repeated values which can be used to group the data. And we can do that. We can change any kind of values which are not going to be computed on. So for example, I have postal code. I can use this, but again, we are not going to find a postal code which is greater than something, right? So integer is not the valid type. Let's change it to text. Okay. And if, for example, I would want to look at this, so I have done some changes here. Okay, and this shows me null. So for example, let me just revert this back and let's make it a whole number. Okay, so there are certain columns or rows which do not have some values, and we can basically get rid of those values. So as of now, we can do a filtering here. So let's keep the postal code as integer, or let's change it to text, do a replace content. And now what we will do is we'll scroll all the way right. Might be I'm interested in technology category, so that's what I'm interested in. So what I can do is here I can do some filtering. So I can basically choose technology. Now the easier way would be, since these are categories and there are only 3 categories, we really don't want to go and apply text filters here. But if you had something like an office supply and office inventory, then you could have done some text filter. So let's not do some text filtering here. What we can do is, I would be interested in technology, so that's the field I'm interested in. So now you are only having data which is related to technology. Okay, and you have some product names. So this is where we want to do some kind of filtering. So we can rename the field, we can select some fields. So let's, for example, let's go for any of the field which I think might have more entries here. So for example, let's go for Canon wireless or Canon image, right? So let's go for product names, and I will say let's go here. Now I could have done a transformation, but that's not what we want. We want to do some filtering. So let's go to text filter, and here I can say begins with, I can say ends with, I can say contains. So let's go for contains, and it says enter a value here. So you would want to keep the rows where the product name contains something, and it gives you some suggestion, right? So where you are seeing in some values here. So for example, if I would have selected this, then it applies the complete thing, but that's not what I want. So I will get rid of all this and I will say it contains Canon. Now I can go for advanced filtering also, okay, wherein you can select advanced and then you can give different columns and what do they contain, what kind of values you're looking for. So you can do that, but we will not go for advanced in one step. Let's go for basic and let's say okay. And now I should get all the products which are Canon, and you have different products. So this is one kind of filtering I've done. It tells me what is the category of this. It is machines, it is copiers, it is obviously belonging to the technology category. We are looking at the market which is for this particular data. When you look at the country, we are still focusing on United States and United Kingdom, that kind of data, right? So we have filtered the data, we have done some selection based on the data here, and what I can do is I can then basically rename a particular field. So I can do that. I can say I'm interested in sales, which is the data here. We can basically look into the quantity. So sales is something which we are interested in, but might be we are interested in sales which are more than a particular value. I'm not interested in lower amount of sales. I would want to look into United States and UK data, but I'm interested in sales, or I'm looking at if the discount percentage was something, or if the profit was more, right? So we can apply different kind of values here, but what we can do is with these changes, because you don't want to transform and make changes all here, you want to make the changes once the data set is uploaded. So we have selected some data, we have done some transformations. We can basically break a particular column into multiple columns if that's what we want. If we see that, we will do an aggregation based on year, or we will do a aggregation based on the country or year and order ID, right? So we can break this data into multiple columns, so we can do that. But for now, let's do a close and apply, and let's apply this. So that's going to apply all these changes. It's going to load my data. But remember, now we are having selective or selected data which gets loaded. So that should be available here. So it takes time sometimes, so you have to wait, and then you can go ahead and check here. So for example, now I'm looking in tables. Let's basically minimize this. Let's go for orders, and this is the data I have, which obviously row ID, if you see. So you have all the row IDs, and again you can do filtering here, but this is where you have already loaded the data. The data is available, and then you can start working on the columns here. So we have this. If you closely see, we see this summation mark, and this basically means that these are my aggregated columns, or these values are measures which can be used for calculations. So we can see that we can create our own aggregations. So we can do that. We can rename the field as we have seen. We can filter out the data. So we have all the fields showing up from orders. And let's also look at the returns, which basically has the columns, the order ID, and your region. So it basically shows the region here, where was the product returned from, and we have this information. So what we are doing is, when we were doing a text filter in the previous example, remember it was case sensitive, okay? And you have to take care of, when you're doing a text filter, you have to give a field which exactly matches as it exists in the content. Now, okay, this is the data we have, and let's look at the order column. Right now, what we can do is we can do some quick transformations here, and we can basically look for more data here. So let's say we have some filtering to be done. Now I can do a filtering based on my products. So we had all these products, but now let's do a filtering on product. And then products, you have copiers, you have machines, so you have mainly two categories, right? And when you look at machines, it basically talks about your PC, uh, something. So let's look for machines, and here we have basically the copier fields which are more. So I can basically go for filtering here, and that's the data we have. So we don't want to really unselect any of these here, but what I'm doing is I'm saying text filter, and let's go into this one now, and let's say contains. Okay, so I'm saying contains, and then I can basically say let's say copier. Now that's what I'm interested in. And show rows where product name contains copier. Okay, now you can give a and condition here. So if you would want a specific copier, if you are interested in, okay, let's also say contains, and let's go for laser also, laser, and let's say okay. So you see the data gets filtered out here. and we have the sales which we are seeing here. So let's go to sales, and we will be interested in anything above 500. So let's go to sales. Let's go for number filters. Let's say greater than, and I will say, for example, 500. Oh, sorry, 500. Okay, and let's say okay. So that basically filters out the data. And then I am also interested in quantity, where I would want the quantity to be more than 1 or more than 2. So for example, so let's go in here, and you can basically choose what is the filter you want. So you can apply any number of filters. Now you have the filtering here. You can always click on the filter, and if you want, you can just do a clear filter and the filtering will be gone. So you have all the data, right? And this is the particular data we have. And here I have, say for example, product name. Now I can keep the filter because I'm interested only in these values, or I can filter out. So this tells me that when we did a and, it is basically going for laser and copier, right? So let's say for example, clear all filters, the thing is gone. What we can do is, let's go here, go for text filters, say contains, and here I will say it can be a copier, okay, or, so last time we did a and I'll do it contains laser. So let's choose this. That gives me more entries. So either the product name has copier or it has laser. It has the quantity, it has the product name, and we have all this detail here. Now what we can also do is we can do some transformation on the product ID. So for example, you have product ID or order ID. So order ID shows up as looks like the country name, the year, and then the order ID. So we can basically split it up. So I can select this, and here I have option of, let's go to home. So when you have selected this column, so you have an option of transform data here. So use the Power Query editor to connect, prepare, and transform the data. So if you really want to transform the data here, if I basically select this, if I just do a right click here, now here it just tells me, do you want a new column? Do you want to create a copy of this column? Okay, you want to create copy table. So this is your transformed data what you have. And for example, let's create a copy table, and let's come in here. So you should be able to see your copy table now. So let's go in and select this one. And what you need to do here is, creating a copy of this or copy table would not be the right option. What we can do is we can work on transforming this rather than doing it from here. So you have this option of adding a new column, going for a new measure, renaming it, right? So that's okay. But what we can do is select this particular column. Let's do a home. And first thing is, let's go to transform. So I want to transform the data. Now let's select this one, and it brings up your Power Editor again. Here we were interested in orders. So we are looking at our data here. Now if you see, my countries United States and UK, so you can confirm that. If you look at category, it is technology. Product name has copier and laser as we selected. So those things are retained, so you have not lost any changes as of now. So this order ID column what we have now, as I said, you can be doing a filtering. Okay, you can select this particular column, and then you have other things which can be used to transform here, like you want to change the data type, you want to use first row as header, you want to replace some values, Okay, you want to run some merge queries, you want to do some analytics, so all these options are here. Now what we can do is, while this column is selected, I can do a right click. Now there is an option called transform, which is basically going to help me in changing the data here. Okay, now I can basically duplicate the column, so I really don't want to work on this column itself, but it would be good to have a duplicate column on which we can work on. So I can do a split column here if I would want to, but let's create a duplicate column. So let's say duplicate column. Now that gives me a duplicate column, so we can rename it later. So now I will not work on my original column, but I'll work on a duplicate column. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically transform or split this. So again, do a right click. Now you have a split by, so we can say split by delimiter, or by number, or by characters, or by position, so by lowercase and uppercase. So you can do all of this. So let's go for by delimiter. Now if you see, it basically identifies the delimiter, which is hyphen or dash. Now you can go for split at leftmost identifier, leftmost delimiter, rightmost, each occurrence of delimiter, and that's what we want to do. You can look into advanced options where it says split into columns. So do you want to split that into columns? Do you want to split that into rows? Because that's more or less like doing a group by. And you can say number of columns to split into. So we have here 1, 2, 3, 4 values. So that looks good to me. And let's do, say for example, if I choose 3. So I can choose 3 and then split using special characters. So you could do that. So let's, for example, let's say okay, and let's look at the data, how it looks like. We can anytime delete the data, we can keep it the way we want, right? So what we did was we created a copy of the column, then we did a split, and what we have seen is we just have 3 columns. Now if you see, the fourth bit is gone, fourth bit doesn't show up, right? Because I just did a 3 as the resulting column. So I have the order ID. Okay, and we can check if there is already an order ID column. So we have order ID, but that has the complete order ID, year, and the relatively product ID. So you can see the customer ID. You can look at this one. So it basically has your order ID, and then let's look at the fields here. So we have the product ID, which says TECMA. I'm looking at the first one, 3700, and that has in no relation to the order ID, right? So we can make sure that there is nothing which is conflicting with our entries. Now once that is done, so we have order ID, which can be used to categorize the data. You have order ID, which is basically the year. Okay, and you have order ID, which is basically having some more value. Now I can keep this data as I want, so I can basically click on this. I can go for renaming, and I can say, let's call it order ID, and let's say IDs. So let us, in case there is a particular column and you would want to look at, so just give the name correctly. Now order IDs is fine. So here we will also rename this one. So let's call it order year, and that's going to be order year. So we can again change this to string. Okay, and here you have the order ID. So let's rename this one, and I have my, let's call order number, right? So we are seeing all the steps which we have added here. We just split the data based on the delimiter, and we have now 3 new columns which have got added to our existing data, which was already filtered, and we have done some splitting up of data by creating a duplicate and then renaming it, right? So if you go and look at your transformations, now if I would have done a split here straight away, then my original column would be gone. But probably we want the original column, because sometimes you may want to search order ID with a consolidated information. Sometimes you may want to segregate it based on year, right? Now we have the year field or order date field here, you have the ship date, right? But then might be you want to just aggregate based on year. You don't want to really spend time in aggregating or extracting the month and day and so on. So these three columns can be useful. Now what I can also do is I can merge the columns if I want. So we have split the columns, but what I can do is I can say select, select, select. So using your control and now do a right click. So you should have an option called merge columns, right? Now this is something which is we would want to merge. So let's say merge columns, and let's say, do you want to keep a separator? So yes, I want to keep a separator, but might be this time I will give my separator is a colon, and then what is the merge column name you want to create. So let's call it something like order, okay, year, and then let's call it num, right? So sometimes renaming the fields to a name which makes more sense or based on your naming convention is good. So let's do a merge, and now what I have done is I have done merging of those columns. So I split the data, I merged the columns, and now if you see the columns which I had created, those columns are gone because you did a merge. You did a merge, and now you have the fields which are either earlier you had something which is separated by a hyphen, and here you have something which is separated by colon, right? Now anytime if you want, you can unmerge this by removing this step, right? And you can get rid of this merge column. So if for example I would do that, so I have my data back, right? I have my data back. So what we could have done is we can select this, okay, and then what we can do is like what we did earlier. So you can basically go for removing the columns, okay, you can do a merge column, okay, you can select one by one and create duplicate of those, and then you can merge them, right? So all the possible options are there. So you can, the best option would be to create a duplicate of these columns and then basically merge them as per your convenience. So might be you can say order IDs and order number is the pairing what you want, year is something which you don't want, right? Because we already have the date field. So I can basically say remove, and this one is gone. Now I will select this and this, and let's go for merge columns, and I want to give a separator which is might be without the year, and you have space, or you can go for custom like earlier we had, give a symbol, and then what do you want to call it? So let's say order specs, okay, right? So this makes more meanings because we already have the date field. So why do I want the year into my order ID? So I can always be doing a segregation now based on order specs, right? Now this is some simple transformations what we are doing here. We are seeing the data which we have, okay. Now what I can do is I can basically first apply these changes so that all my changes what I have done are applied. right? Now, once these changes are done, we can basically go ahead and save this file. So I can just say save, I can go for save as. I have different other options. So if you would want to keep performing your transformation, then you can just do this. You can add a column, you can view the data. So for now, our transformations are good enough. And what we can do is we can basically go back to home. We can do a close and apply, and we will be back to our data set, which has been modified. So we can see if the data what we have has been transformed. So we have order specs here. That's good. We did not do any filtering, or we have the filter left here, which basically tells me that there are these different fields. We have not removed them, but what we are doing is we are just applying a filter to choose copiers and laser printers. So that's what we have here, and this is good enough. Now what I can do is, once this is done, I can basically save it. So I would want to call it some kind of report if you would want to create. Okay, so let's call it as let's say second report, and here I will say country and technology specific info. Let's save it, and now basically I have saved my data. So what you can do is you can go for creating other report, or basically having this information published if that's what you want to do, if you want to go for visualization. Because right now what we are seeing is we have a lot of data here. It shows me there are these tables or data sets which we have worked on, that shows me here in the models, but there is no relationship with them. If you go into visualization, then you don't have any option, or you have not created any visualizations based on this data. But if you go here now, based on the data what we transformed, if you see, we have order specs. Right now, that's what we chose. We basically have other fields. So you have ship date, you have aggregated columns which can be used for visualizing, and we can work on this. So I can come back here, and what I would be interested in is this data set is fine, but I want to do some grouping. I want to basically have some selective data in this, and for that what I can do is let's go for ship mode. Now this is something what we have. So we are in this data field. Now we have this transform. So let's go back to transform again, and let's choose our orders. So that's the data we have. And now if you see here, this is huge amount of data. What we want is we want to group them based on the shipping mode. So here you have an option called group by. So I can select this. I can go in here. I can basically work on, okay, get rid of duplicate values, but that's not what we want to do. You want to do a group by. So as I said, you can do a group by from here, or you can choose from the transform option above, and you can do a group by. So let's do a group by. Now, how do you want to group the data? So I'm saying I want to group the data here based on shipping mode, or which is the other column you want to use to do a group by. So let's go for shipping mode. And what is the new column name, right? So we want to basically find out that you want to go for ship mode, but that's not enough. I mean, I can do a ship mode and I can do a grouping by, but you want to just count the rows. No, that's not what we want to do. So let's go to advanced. So ship mode is fine. So that's your grouping, right? But then what we also want to do is we want to do a grouping based on say sales. So here, for example, let's go for sales. Okay, and what should we call this? So might be we can say shipment wise sales, whatever you would want to call. So you can basically get the operation. Do you want to really count the rows? No, we want to basically do a summing, or we want to might be find out an average price, right? So let's do a sum. Okay, and here I would want to do a summing based on, say for example, sales. So this is what I'm going to use for getting a count of the sales. Now grouping by, might be we will change this. uh, instead of sales, we are using a ship mode. What we can also do is let's go for a segment, and that would be valid grouping. So it will take a combination of ship mode, segmenting, group the data based on that, and then get me the sales, which is basically, let's call it shipment wise sales. So it gets a sum. So let's do a okay, and that's my more relevant data which I'm looking at. So I'm looking at the ship mode, I'm looking at what is the segment, and then I'm looking at what is the total sales there. I'm looking at again the ship mode, standard, and home office. So always remember, when you are choosing multiple fields or multiple columns for grouping by, you are basically having a combination of two fields. So that has to be unique, and your grouping is done based on that. So now you're looking at the sales wise, and this is something as an important information what we have. So we have done some transformation, and what you can do is you can use other ways, like you can use pivot to get individual values from it. You can run on merge queries, which is basically running some merge queries and merge the query with another query in this workbook if you have. So you can go for this. Now I can basically go for apply and close. So just to add to the group by step, what we did was, if you see here, I have removed the group by filter, which we just did couple of minutes back. And what I have done is, instead of transforming your complete data set, you can basically create a copy of it. So for example, I can just do a copy, and then I can come here and do a paste, and I have done that, and I'm calling it order summarized, but this is my complete data. Now what we will do here is we will basically go ahead and do a grouping by, again like what we did earlier, based on your shipment, based on your segment, and based on the sales. So that's what we are looking for. So let's go for the ship mode, and we go for group by, and here you would want to go for advanced to ship mode, and this one I will go for segment. So that's fine. Now we want the new column name, so let's say shipment wise sales. So I want to do a summing, not the counting of rows, and I want to do a summation based on sales, like what we did earlier. And then you say okay, and that basically gives you the data here. Now what we have is, we have the resultant data based on the data which is coming in from here. We did the same thing just 1 minute back, but we worked on the original data set. So what I did was I created a copy, and now I'm working on this one. So I'll say close and apply, and now we are back to our desktop. So it is applying these changes where we have done some transformations, we have done some grouping by, and what we can do is, once we have the data here, we can anytime look at our data sets or tables. So this is my original one. If you see, now I have order summarized. I can just pull out this information. I basically have my returns, which we have not really touched, and we have the scientists. So we have all the 4 data sets here. Now what we can also do is, let's look into order summarized, and we just have this data here. So this is fine, and you can continue working on this. You can basically merge columns from 2 different data sets, and then you can get the merged column and you can rename it. So you can obviously do that. You can basically do a uncheck whenever you're working on these data sets. So what you can do is, if you would want to work on transforming, for example, let's go back here and say I want to do some transformation on it. So how did we do it? We just did a transform, and you can go back to transform. So you have this data here, and the data what you have, you might be interested in transforming this into something else, and then you don't want to maybe load this data. So you have this option where you are selecting orders, and then you have something called as enable load, which can be unchecked. So when you do a uncheck, what will happen is whatever changes you perform, only those changes related data set will be loaded, and they will still be available, but this will not affect your, it will not affect your original one. So for example, let's say copy, and let's go in here. I will do a paste. Let's say orders. Oh, I did a paste. I need to rename this. So let's do renaming. Let's say orders, and here I will say summarized, and I will say US. So I'm renaming it. Now let that get loaded. We can perform some transformations on it. So I have here, where's my country? So let's look for country. Yeah, and let's look for country. So here I will go for only United States. Okay, that's what I'm interested in. And then I can choose, well, I'm interested in just central US. So I can basically go for just the central US, and I can get rid of all of these. So now I should have only central US data, and this is fine. And this is the data might be we are focusing on right now for doing some visualization, might be looking at sales, might be looking at the product names. So you have the product name. Now remember, you don't see any filters here, right? Because the filters are coming from the resultant set and your transformation. So if you have any filters, you would be seeing in the top row. Now this is the data we have. Let's not restrict it to region. Region would then reduce my data, but that's good enough for us. I can just say no, I'm clearing off this filter. I'm still looking at United States, but I want to look at all the regions. Yeah, we would be interested in category, and that's anyways chosen as technology, which we had chosen when we were loading the data. We have copiers and machines, right? And we can basically keep this. Now this is fine. I can apply the changes. I can apply the changes based on this one. And what I can do is I can just say for now apply. So that's going to apply all the changes which you have done in orders or summary or the new one, right? And what I can do is now I can choose order, and I can say don't enable this in load. So it says disabling load will remove the table from the report, and any visuals that use its columns will be broken. We are not creating any visuals as of now. The table will be removed. So that's fine. And now I will say close and apply. So what happens is you are loading the data based on the changes. Okay. Now you have your order summarized, you have returns, you have scientists, but you basically do not have orders anymore. So that was not loaded. So I only have this one, I only have this one, and you have returns, you have scientist, you don't have the orders column, right? Now that particular data set was not loaded at all because we did not choose that to be loaded, right? Now while I'm in this orders, which is, let's see here, and actually you can drag in, yeah. So you have order summary, and this has basically kind of data which I'm looking for, so I really don't need the orders table. So you can do it in steps, and you can aggregate this. You can have aggregated data, you can have all the data which is filtered, transformed, grouped by, and then basically just load it, and the original data set which you used, that's no more being loaded here. Now at any point of time, if I really want, I can go back to transform data, and remember, it is still here. It is still here. It's not gone, right? So you can basically select this and you can say enable load, and you will have the data back, which you can continue working on, right? So these are some quick transformations which really help us in working on the data. Now, obviously, if you have data, you want to perform some left joins, right joins, you have inner joins, outer joins, so you can always do that. You can take two different data sets. Might be I'm interested in taking the orders summarized, which talks about standard class, consumer, shipment wise sales. And here, if I look at order summary, I have other details, but the thing is we need to make sure that these have the values. These have the values. Say for example, the segment column here and the segment column here can really be used to join these two tables. So if I create a relationship or if I create a join, I can basically merge the data. So this is how you work on data. We will also see some more examples on, might be modeling the data using some expressions to work on the data. So we already looked at creating a report, selecting particular fields, and then publishing the report onto your Power BI service. Now this is the report which we had created, which says state, order ID, sales, and then I also added this returned field, and that was basically by creating a relationship between order and returns, which we can also have a look in model. So this is the relationship which is created. If you just place your cursor here, it tells me that we have a relationship between order ID of returns and order ID of orders, and that basically allows me to join the data, bring it in my one report. Now this is basically your data sources you can look at, and if you click on your visualization, so that shows you your report. Now what we can also do is we can make it interesting. Now we would not want to scroll through the fields to see wherever or what was the order or what was the order ID which was returned. Now I can do a sorting, I can filter out. What I can also do is I can use this option which shows slicer here, and that basically allows me to work with this data. So we have this report here, and basically, as I said, you can click in here, it shows the data. Now what I can do is I would want to filter out information or slice the information using your returned, either being yes or having a field which has no value. How do we do that? So basically I can drag and drop the returned here as a field which comes from returns. Now that basically shows me only the value as yes, but I do know that there are some fields which are blank. Now how do I add filter to this? So I can click on this one, and then I can click on slicer. Now once that does, so it basically pulls out all the different values. So you have either yes or you have the blank field for returned. So what we can do is we can select yes. You will see only the orders and their IDs and sales where the products were returned. So that gives me 108,118, and I can select blank. So that will basically get me all the orders or products which were not returned. Now this is a simple way wherein I can add a filter to, or a slicer to, my report to basically give viewers a choice of selecting different fields. And you can add any number of slicers. You can basically say I would want particular kind of information. So for example, if I go into orders, and we know we have the state. Now I do have the state information here, and basically I can, if I would be interested, I could filter this out in my report itself. I can sort it, I can look it in a different order. What I can also do is, how about bringing in state here and basically dragging it here. So that gives me the state option. It is giving me a visual, which is basically giving me a geographic location of all these points. So yes, that can be good. What I can also do is I can keep this, which basically shows me the state map. Might be it can be useful. You can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can look at specific information here, you can drag and drop here. So that's fine. What I can also do is I can again take the state and bring it here, and that basically can be, instead of my map, I can go for slicer. So that gives me all the values here, and which basically allows users to choose the fields or the states which you would be interested in looking at. So for example, if somebody is interested in looking at the data for Georgia, just select this one, and you see the map automatically shows you where in the map that's the place, and it shows me all the sales for Georgia state. Now I can also basically select yes, and that shows me which were the orders which were basically returned. So that gives me a quick overview of state wise what is the geographical location, if the orders were returned, or might be I can just click on blank and it shows me the non-returned orders. I can again go here and uncheck the Georgia option, and that shows me all the states. Now once you have done this, this looks like a comprehensive report which can be useful for the viewers, for your management team, and so on. So we can just do a save, and that basically is saving my report. So I have this report. Now what if I publish this report? So I can just do a publish, and when I publish, it says okay, workspace. So let's say select, and then it says replacing this data set may impact two reports. You already have a data set named by this one. View the impact. I would say replace, or I will say view impact. So that basically takes me to the Power BI service, because sometimes we may have some reports which we have already uploaded, and updating an existing report might basically affect my existing report. So it basically shows me the impact analysis. It shows me one workspace. There are two reports. They have not been added to dashboard, but these are the ones which will get modified. So let's, for example, as of now, go ahead here and let's look into my Power BI. So go back to your desktop, and I'll say no, I don't want to replace. So click on cancel. So I do not want to publish it. What might be what I can do is I can try saving it as a different report. So let's say save as, and now I will basically say additional filters. Okay, let's save it. So now you see the name on the top changes to additional filters, and now it's saved to publish this. And now I can go ahead and publish it. Select your workspace, and basically it says this is the report being published with our additional filters, with a map which gives a geographical area showing us the information. And then basically what I can do is, once it is done, I can look into my Power BI service like we did earlier. You can do a filtering. We can basically query this data. We can share it with other users who might be interested in looking at this particular data. Now this says it is done. So it says get quick insights and might be it's a good an option to look into what kind of insights it gives you. So click on that. See the beauty of Power BI, where it tries to search for any kind of insights which it can gather from the kind of report which you have built. Now once the insights are ready, it will let you know. What we can also do is we can come in here, click on view data set. So you see now it shows your additional filters, and here you have option where it should be showing your report. So let's say view, and view is fine. So, and if it doesn't show up, sometimes it might be taking time for refreshing. So you can always go here and then you can click on your report, and that should get populated. So this is the report. These are the filters which I have. Gives me an option of choosing all the states, and basically allows me to edit the report and look at all the information here. Meanwhile, we can see here it is still trying to gather some insights from the data. And now you see there are some insights here. So it says sales, which is coming up, and a subset of your data was analyzed and the following insights were found. So you're looking at sales by ship mode. So it says standard class, second class, first class, and same day. So there were different shipping modes in our data, and that's what it shows me: the sales, which one had the majority. It shows me the profit, so which city or state had more profit. So New York City has noticeable more profits here. Average by shipping cost, by subcategories. So there are these different subcategories which we can look at, such as copiers and machines have noticeably more shipping cost. Profit by product name, and you can basically look at the row ID and quantity. So this is where you're looking at a regression analysis. You're looking at row ID and quantity. So there is a correlation between row ID and quantity. So these are two different variables or fields which are related. You're looking row ID by category, row ID. So it says California has noticeably more row IDs. Sales, your profit, count of region, and count of returns. So there is a correlation again between two different variables. Average of shipping cost. Now we would have taken a lot of time building all these visualizations, but Power BI has already helped you in gathering all these insights, and then you can basically select which one of these is what you're interested in. You can focus and look for more information based on all the fields. It has given you good amount of insights which will help anyone who is looking at this particular report. So that's your quick insights here, and we have this information. Now once you have this information, this is basically where you have your focus mode. So it says subset of your data was analyzed, following insights were found. You can basically say download, and here you have other options which allow you to work with your Power BI. So let's look at this one. So this is where we have our report, and we can continue exploring it more. One more interesting feature which Power BI has, other than having your insights ready to use, which is basically in your workspace, and you can basically use these insights. What we are looking at, various options here, and basically you have this option where it says spin the visual. If you are interested in a particular insight, you can always pin it, which you can always go back and look into. What you can also do is you can also click on edit report here. Now that's a report which has already been published to your Power BI service, not yet shared, but that can be shared or that can be subscribed. Now once you click on edit report, it has option of reading view, mobile layout. You have basically an option which says basically options for navigating through the data set. You can go for how visuals on the canvas interact with each other. You have all these options, and one of the good options is ask a question. So you can always click on ask a question, and that basically says some suggestions. Now you can open this and it says, okay, ask a question about your data. Try one of these to get started. What is the average sale? Sort orders by order date. Sort orders by product ID. How many ship modes are there? Compare quantity and discount. So do not worry that your report has only 4 fields. So it has state, order ID, sales, and returned with some filters. But what about you looking at how many ship modes are there? So it is already looking at your data. So if you click on this one here, and you can see what are the different fields what we have, and you have ship date and ship mode. So this is one of the fields which it is showing you to ask a question. Now what you can do is you can say how many ship modes are there. Let's click on that. Let's ask this question. It says 4 ship modes. And do you want to add this to report? Yes, you can. You can let it be as it is. So you can basically keep this question here. And here you have an option. The visual is showing number of ship modes. When you place your cursor here, if you see here, turn this Q&A result into a standard visual. And let's do that. And basically it is saying number of ship modes. Right? So now that's the power of your Power BI, which has basically allowed you to ask a question and quickly add a visual to your report. Now what we can do is we can basically save this, or you can say save as and give a different name. So might be I'll just say save because I would want to have this information and the report is saved. So in this way, you can basically not only create smart visuals, you can not only relate different data sources using data models or relationships, you can add maps, you can add filters, you can add quick questions. You can basically just go here and say, for example, you would want to ask a different question. Now we see the fields here. How about looking at the shipping cost, right? So here I can say, what is the highest shipping cost? And that shows me some suggestions. Let's select that, and that shows me the value, which is great. And I can keep it as it is. I can basically convert this to a visual. I may want to keep the question because might be this question was asked and you would want to see the result here. Might be you can move this somewhere here, and that gives me some kind of question which was asked, and we can do a save. And that's my report, which has been saved in my BI service. The data set is still there. You can basically go ahead and share this.
Now with that, we have come to an end of this session on business intelligence with Power BI. If you have any queries regarding any of the topics covered in this session, or if you require the resources that we used in this session, like the PPT, code document, datasets, etc., then do let us know in the comment section below, and our team of experts should be more than happy to resolve all your queries at the earliest. Until next time, thank you, stay safe, and keep learning.
Hi there, if you like this video, subscribe to the Simplilearn YouTube channel and click here to watch similar videos. To nerd up and get certified, click here.